You can support me by subscriing to my channel and liking my videos to be informed about new videos. Have a good listening. They say that sometimes we have to work hard to get what we want in life. Yes, that's true. We must strive. But what if others strive for the exact opposite of what we want? Who will win? The one who can afford it, or the one who works harder? I don't know, but I always worked my ass off to get what I wanted, and in the end, I always won. However, there were some things I didn't understand. While I was trying to move forward on the right path, someone else was trying to lead me astray. And this was not the first time I had experienced this in my life. Only this time my enemies were very different. My name is Marcus. I am 29 years old. I lost my father at a very young age. We were left alone with my mother. At first, everyone was trying to help us and do us good, but over time, we saw that there were other intentions behind these good deeds. People were bad. No one did good without expecting anything in return. That's why I had to drop out of school. I didn't want my mother to work. I was bringing home a living somehow. Sometimes I went hungry. Sometimes I walked around in torn clothes, but I didn't let anyone take advantage of us. Time passed. I grew up. I made good friends. Thanks to them, thank God, I did decent work and earned money. A year or two after I returned from the military, my mother said to me, "Son, I'm old. Look, you have no one. What will you do alone after I die? You can't be alone. You need to get married." My mother's words made me think deeply. I had never thought about marriage before. All I could think about was my mother's health and our financial situation. I hadn't had the chance to think about anything else. My mother spoke again. "I want to see my grandchildren too. You are my only child. You are my only possession in life. I don't want to die without seeing your happy day," she said. As I heard these words, I remembered the girl I saw in the park recently. I used to walk there every time I went. The moment our eyes met, her face was etched in my mind. I would recognize her anywhere. She was a very beautiful girl, 1.60 meters tall, with a slim waist and long hair. But I still didn't know her name. I was thinking to myself, I wish I had such a beautiful, charming and attractive girlfriend. While I was thinking about these, my mother put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Son, is there anyone you have your heart set on?" I'll stand up. "No, Mom, there's no one there. I'm late for work," I said. "We'll talk later." I kissed my mother on the cheek and left the house. 2 days later, when I came home from work, I saw a shoe in front of the door that didn't belong to us. When I walked in, I found my mother talking to someone. When she saw me, she immediately stood up and said, "Welcome, son. Look, we have a guest. This is Isabella, my aunt's granddaughter. She got into university this year. She was staying here with friends." I was very upset when I heard this. I went and picked her up right away. She said she would be living with us from now on. The girl was tall, with black, curly hair, small eyes, and a little thin. "Welcome, Isabella. My name is Marcus. If you need anything, or have any problems, you can let me know," I said. Isabella lifted her head from the floor and looked into my eyes, saying, "I'm glad. Thank you very much. Actually, I didn't want to bother you, but my Aunt Margaret insisted, so I came." My mother immediately intervened and said, "My daughter, how can such a thing be possible? Of course you will. This is your home now, too." From that day on, Isabella started living with us. At first I didn't understand why my mother brought her home, but over time I realized. My mother was trying to bring Isabella closer to me. One day she said to me, "Son, take that girl out for a while. She'll enjoy it." How many months has she been here? She hasn't gone out for a day. It's always school and home. She's bored too. "Mom, I'm very busy with work. I thought we could all go out together one day." Isabella was a truly introverted and quiet girl. My mother had talked so much about marriage and children around her that it had obviously confused her. I could more or less understand how she felt from the way she looked at me. but I was still fixated on that girl I saw in the park. I had no interest in Isabella, because she was a guest in our house. Looking sideways would have seemed dishonorable to me. Months passed. I began to understand her feelings for me more clearly. Even though I treated her like a sister at every opportunity, it was as if she didn't want to see this. The biggest reason for this was my mother. I was angry with my mother. Why is she doing something like this? But at the same time, I understood. My mother only wanted me to be happy. There was something she missed though. I didn't like Isabella. One morning I woke up early and went to the park for a walk. My eyes were looking for that girl again. After a few laps, I saw her. She was coming from far away. She had let her hair down and draped it over her shoulders. She also had a tight black top on. It showed off her body lines. She was very beautiful. Her eyebrows, eyes, lips, all looked perfect. This time I couldn't take my eyes off her. No matter how hard I tried, it just wouldn't work. She was looking at me too. As we approached each other, our eyes met. When she came up to me, she said hello and smiled. I was having a hard time not losing myself. I nodded, said hello, smiled, and walked past her. I was ashamed to turn around and look back. I had walked a few steps away when suddenly I heard her screaming. When I turned around, I saw 2 dogs cornering her. I couldn't understand where they came from. I have been walking around the park since the morning. There wasn't even a single dog. I ran to her. I drove the dogs away. Her hands were shaking. She was very scared. "Are you okay?" I said. "Everything is fine." She looked into my eyes. I couldn't speak. I grabbed her arm and sat her down on the nearest bench. "Don't worry, you're fine. Don't be afraid. I'm with you," I said, holding her hand tightly. Her hands were cold as ice. After a while she recovered, but she still didn't let go of my hand. I have to admit I liked it. "Thank you. I don't know what I would do without you," she said. "You don't have to be afraid. Such things happen here. Are you okay?" I said. "Yes, I'm fine," she said. "Now that you've come to your senses, I'll introduce myself. My name is Marcus," I said. "I'm pleased. My name is Nina. I'm glad too," she said. "What a beautiful name," I said. Nina smiled. "Yes. My mother is from Romania and my father is from here," she said. I was surprised to hear that. "But you were born and raised here, right?" I said. "Yes, born and raised here. I go to Romania occasionally and visit our relatives. The air, water, and people there are wonderful." "Of course, the same here," she said. We chatted that day. We tried to get to know each other. Everything was going very well. We exchanged numbers and quickly became good friends. But this friendship soon turned into love. I didn't want to waste any more time. I said, "Why wait?" and proposed to her. My mother and her family didn't know yet, because everything had developed suddenly. I got along so well with her that I didn't want to lose her no matter what, Nina said with some hesitation. "My family is a little strict. I don't know how to tell them," I said. "Don't worry. You meet my mother first. Then we'll tell your family together." I took her home. When we got home, my mother and Isabella were in the kitchen. My mother was surprised to see me with Nina. "My son, what's up? Who is this girl?" she said. "Mom, you always tell me you'll die before you see me married. I brought you the bride to introduce," I said. The conversation had stopped. Everyone was surprised, especially Isabella. My mother came over after a short while. She hugged and kissed Nina. "Welcome, my daughter. Come in." My mother called out to the kitchen and said, "Isabella, my daughter, make some tea. Look, our guest has arrived." Isabella didn't answer. After a while, she came into the living room with tea in her hand. She quietly left the tea, then she went back. That day, Nina got along very well with my mother. This made me happy too. Within a week, we got engaged. My mother didn't say a single negative thing, because she loved Nina very much. After we got engaged, Isabella said to my mother, "I want to live with the girls from now on. It is better for me to study with them," and left us. After she left, I felt like a huge burden had been lifted, because her presence was making me uncomfortable. I didn't know why, but I felt guilty. We decided on the wedding day, without wasting any time. We printed the invitations. We also sent one to Isabella. I wish we hadn't sent it, because a week before the wedding, Isabella started coming to our house constantly. Even though my mother didn't call, "I came to help you. Maybe you need something," she said, and stayed home day and night. She wouldn't take her eyes off me when I came in. She kept trying to get closer, but I absolutely didn't want that. Finally, the wedding day arrived. Everything was fine. Of course, Isabella was also at the wedding. Our wedding went very well. All our loved ones, relatives, and friends were there. Nina's relatives from Romania were there too. I loved them very much. They were warm and welcoming people. Everything went smoothly. There wasn't a single flaw. My closest friends were there at the wedding. Thanks to them, I didn't miss a sibling. They did everything they could. Everything was wonderful. A week after the wedding, my mother got a little sick. I took her to the hospital. When the doctor said it would be better for her to stay in the hospital for a few days, I was stunned. My mother hadn't even taken proper medication. Staying in the hospital would be very difficult for her. From the day she stayed there, instead of getting better, she got worse. She was constantly crying and complaining that her whole body ached. Even the injections didn't help. 4 days passed like this. On the last day, she got up and packed her things. "My son, come on, take me away from here. I feel very good. I want to go to my house," she said. The doctors were surprised too. The woman, who had been writhing in her bed just yesterday, was now standing. She wanted to go home. After a few tests, the doctor said everything was normal, that she just needed to be a little careful. I brought my mother home. As soon as she got home, she went into her room. She didn't come out for hours. She wouldn't eat. She wouldn't talk. It hurt me deeply to see her like this. The woman had collapsed within days. She had become very thin. Her hair had suddenly turned gray. I didn't know what had happened to her. All I knew was that my mother wasn't well. A month had passed since this situation. My mother had withdrawn into herself day by day. She was eating very little and wouldn't leave her room. Her memory was slowly fading. Sometimes when we asked her name, she would say, "I don't know. Don't ask me anything." Even though I wanted to take her to the hospital, she did not accept. None of the doctors I called to my home could tell me anything definitive. They claimed there was no medical problem. One evening, while I was thinking about what I could do for her, there was a knock on the door. When I opened the door, I saw Isabella standing in front of me. She had a small suitcase in her hand. "What's up? Is everything okay?" I said. Isabella said, "Yes, everything is fine." Schools were closed for a few days. In the meantime, I wanted to visit my aunt. I know she is not well. I want to take care of her for a bit. At that moment, Nina called out from behind, "Don't keep your guest waiting. Go inside." I was surprised when Isabella came home again. She hadn't come by even once since the wedding. Now, it was strange that she suddenly showed up, carrying a suitcase. We had dinner together that night. We talked about my mother and considered what we could do. Isabella said, "Don't worry. I'll take very good care of her. She'll be back on her feet soon. She'll be even better than before." I said, "I hope it's as you said." I went to work early the next morning. I had a strange uneasiness inside me. Both my mother's illness and Isabella's stay with my wife were making me uneasy. I knew she had always been interested in me. I had a suspicion inside me. It was as if something secret was going on. I returned that day feeling internally exhausted. When I got home, I noticed the curtains were completely closed. I opened the door and went in. It was quiet. I wanted to turn on the light, but there was no electricity. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. Neither my wife nor Isabella were in the house. The dining table was set, but it was messy. I had a feeling something was wrong. I wondered if something had happened here. Suddenly, I heard a strange voice in my ear. It was coming from the bathroom. I approached slowly. The door was wide open. I shined the phone light on it. There was no one inside. Just as I was about to walk away, I heard the voice again. I went back in. The voice was coming from behind the door. When I turned on the light, I saw my wife. She was sitting behind the door, hugging her knees. She was rocking back and forth. She was mumbling something, crying. I put my phone aside. I approached and touched her shoulder. Her body was cold. "What happened, honey? Why are you like this? Where is Isabella? Did you have an argument?" I asked. But Nina didn't answer me. Her lips were moving. She was saying something, but I couldn't understand. I pulled her to her feet. As I tried to pick up my phone from the floor and carry her towards the bedroom, my wife suddenly let go of my hand and turned around. She reached out into the darkness and said, "There, who's there?" At that very moment, a voice rose from the darkness. The voice sent shivers down my spine. It belonged to neither a human nor an animal. It said something in a rather deep voice, the meaning of which I didn't understand. I held my phone towards the darkness. At that moment, it was as if a black shadow passed by. My wife hid behind me in fear. She was holding my shirt tightly. I could feel her hands trembling. I told her to calm down. I started praying under my breath, but it seemed to be of no use. I took her arm again and took her to the living room. I sat her on the couch. I stroked her hair and said, "My dear, what happened? What happened here? Please tell me." But she still wasn't herself. She constantly looked left and right. She was checking her surroundings in a rush. She looked scared, as if something was going to jump on her any minute. I sat next to her and hugged her tightly. I was doing my best to make her feel safe. "Everything is fine. I'm with you," I said. We waited in silence. Suddenly, I remembered my mother. I turned to my wife and said, "My dear, you sit here. I'll check on my mom." Nina held my hand and begged, "Please don't leave me alone. Don't worry, everything is fine. I'll be right back," I said. I walked towards my mother's room. I opened the door and went inside. It was dark in here. I couldn't see anything because my wife had my phone. I called out to her, "Honey, can you please bring the phone here?" At that very moment, the phone's light went out. Nina's scream shook the house. I immediately ran to her and hugged her. "I'm with you. Don't be afraid." I tried to calm her down. After a while, she was taking deep breaths, trying to compose herself as she held my arms tightly. The phone had fallen to the floor. The only thing illuminating the house was the moonlight coming through the window. Just when I thought everything was returning to normal, I felt movement in a corner of the room. I turned my eyes there. It was very dark. I couldn't see clearly, but I was sure something was moving there. A few seconds later I heard a voice. This voice sounded familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. I stood up and picked up my phone from the floor. I turned on the flashlight and shined it into the dark corner. I took a few steps closer. I was shocked by what I saw. Nina was sitting in the corner of the room, crying loudly. I immediately turned around. I looked at the person I had just hugged on the couch. There was no one there. I went back to Nina in surprise. I grabbed her arms and lifted her up. "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" I said. She wanted to speak, but no sound came out. Then she could not stand it and fainted. I didn't know what to do. It was as if this darkness had penetrated my soul. I picked her up and sat her in a corner. I waited for the electricity to come back on. That night was the longest night of my life. I could neither move nor stir. It was like something invisible was holding me back. I hugged my wife and stayed like that until the morning. I opened my eyes with the first light of the morning. Everything seemed normal, but my wife was not with me. I immediately checked around. It was as if what happened last night had never happened. I walked into our bedroom. When I opened the door, Nina was sleeping in her bed. I looked at my mother and she was fine too. I didn't dare enter Isabella's room. I thought, I hope she's okay too. What happened last night was a terrible nightmare. Maybe I had strange dreams because of my work fatigue. But this was not normal. Thank God it was the weekend. What I experienced last night had exhausted me. I needed to rest today. I went to my room and changed my clothes. I lay down on the bed. As soon as I closed my eyes, I fell asleep. Even though I was asleep, I was aware of what was happening around me. My mind felt like it had been left awake. My wife had gotten up. I could hear her voice. She was muttering something to herself. Then she got up from the bed. After walking around the room a few times, she came to me. She touched my hair with her fingertips. Maybe she was trying to wake me up, but I was too tired. I was in no position to open my eyes. I wanted to say, "Let me get some sleep," but I couldn't speak. She started running her fingertips down my back. I never realized nails were this long. They were quite long and pointed. After a while, her nails started digging into my back. I was hurting. I was getting angry, but I couldn't react. She brought her lips close to my ear. She whispered incomprehensible things in a tone of anger. I didn't know what language it was in. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed into the room. I didn't know where it was coming from, but it filled the entire room. My wife was harming my body with her nails. I started praying silently, but it was still useless. Suddenly I found myself in a dark void. It was pitch dark everywhere. There was just an unpleasant, misty darkness. I heard my mother's voice from far away. "Help me, son. Get me out of here," she was saying. I didn't know what to do. I ran quickly in the direction of the sound. I couldn't see where I was stepping in the darkness. I was focusing only on the sound. However, as I got closer, the sound was receding from me. Maybe I was running in the wrong direction. Then, I saw a white light up ahead. As I went towards it, black smoke covered the light. The sight started to make my body shiver. I was crying cold tears. The presence of that smoke threatened me. I had forgotten all the prayers I knew. I started to run, but the smoke wrapped around my entire body. My hands, my feet, my entire body seemed to surrender to it. For a moment, I felt emptiness. That dark presence had imprisoned me. Then I suddenly opened my eyes. I was in my bed. My wife had just woken up. She looked at me with a smile and said, "Good morning, my dear. I guess you came late last night. I didn't hear you come. I'm making breakfast. You get up to wash your hands and face, and come." After she left that room, I was still staring at the ceiling. I couldn't get the nightmares I had since yesterday out of my mind. I took a deep breath and tried to collect myself. I went to my mother's room. When I entered, my mother and Isabella were sitting at the bedside. When she saw me, Isabella stood up excitedly and asked, "How are you feeling today?" "I don't know. I'm a little tired. I didn't sleep well last night," I said. Isabella immediately sprang into action. "If you want, I can make you a nice tea. My mother sent it from the village, a blend of many herbs. It tastes a little strange, but it is good for the body. I'm going to make it right away," she said, and ran to the kitchen. I sat next to my mother. I caressed her hair. She had become very weak. Her eyes were staring into space. I grabbed her hand and moved closer to her face. "Mom, what happened to you? Please get well soon. I missed you so much," I said. My mother turned her eyes to me. Tears were flowing from her eyes. She held my hand tightly and said, "Let's get out of here." It was the first time she had spoken in a long time. "Mom, what do you say? Where should we go? Please speak. If you know something, tell me. For God's sake, who did this to you?" I said. My mother pulled her hand away. She pointed her finger to a corner of the room. I turned around and saw only a blank wall. I turned to my mother again and said, "Mom, what do you see there?" "Here," she said. She spoke so clearly, as if she wasn't the one who hadn't said a word for months. My eyes filled with tears. "I'm begging you, please get well soon," I said. At that moment I felt someone standing behind me. I quickly turned around, but no one was there. I looked at my mother again. I jumped back at what I saw. My mother had no eyes. Her throat had been cut deeply. Her bed was covered in blood. At that very moment, my wife's voice was heard. I turned to the door. Nina was standing there. "What happened, honey? Why are you shouting?" she said. I could only say, "My mother." My wife approached the bed. "Don't worry. Look at your mother. She's fine. Come on, let's eat our food. Then we can bring breakfast to your mother," she said. I grabbed her arm and took her out of the room. I turned around one last time. My mother was lying peacefully on her bed. I talked to my wife about my mother. "She tells us to get out of here," I said. "There is something going on in this house, but I don't understand it. You entered your mother's room and suddenly started screaming. You think you're talking to her? Please, pull yourself together. I know your mother's situation makes you very sad, but you should get some rest now," she said. My wife went to the kitchen. I looked at the door of my mother's room. A puff of black smoke passed in front of the door, and the door slowly closed on its own. I was trying so hard not to lose my sanity. I went to the bathroom and washed my hands and face. Then I went to the kitchen. Isabella came with a glass of tea in her hand. "Be sure to drink it. You'll see, it will be very good for you. Come on, Nina, eat your food. Then drink your tea. Go out with your friends today. Take some time for yourself. You have been very tired for a long time," she said. "Yes, you're right. I need to get my act together as soon as possible," I said. I finished my meal and drank the tea Isabella gave me. At that moment, all the weight on me disappeared. It was as if what I experienced last night had never happened. There was a strange peace inside me. I was feeling happy and energetic. After a while, I met up with my friends. I spent that day outside and had fun. When I got home at night, everyone was already asleep. I was quiet at home. I went to the bathroom and washed my face. I went to my room and lay down on the bed. I took a deep breath. At that very moment I heard my wife's voice. She started moving her hand on my chest. I felt her hot breath on my neck. A desire arose within me that I could not resist. I let myself go. We were together that night. Then she hugged me. She laid her head on my chest and we fell asleep. When I opened my eyes in the morning, I felt more energetic, but something was different. I extended my hand. I wanted to caress Nina's hair. It was not my wife. It was Isabella. I stepped back in shock. She opened her eyes and said, "Good morning, dear." I shouted angrily, "What are you doing here? This is my bed. Where is Nina?" Isabella only knew how to say good morning. "Get up and get out of here. You won't be able to fool me from now on," I said. At that very moment, I heard my mother's voice. "Breakfast is ready. Come on, come on." I paused when I heard this voice. I could no longer tell whether I was living in reality or an illusion. I put on my clothes and went out to the living room. My mother was preparing breakfast. Isabella came after me. She was looking at me with confused eyes. Isabella asked my mother, "Mom, who is Nina?" My mother said, "I don't know. My daughter." "Why do you ask?" "I don't know, Mom. Marcus asked me where Nina was." He screamed in anger. "Are you losing your mind? Are you playing games with me? Do you think I don't know what's going on here? What happened to Nina? What did you do to her? Mom, when did you recover? When did you stand up? Oh my God, I'm going crazy," I said. I grabbed 2 glasses from the table and threw them at the wall. While I was angrily turning the house upside down, My mother and Isabella were standing in a corner, looking at me with strange expressions on their faces. I turned to them. I'm about to lose my mind. Someone tell me what's going on? What's going on here? Where is Nina? Why were you in my bed at night? I asked, but they did not answer. I felt like I was going crazy. I came face to face with my mother. She was pointing to a corner. Her face was pitch black and she had a creepy smile. The same expression appeared on Isabella's face. When I saw them like that, my heart almost came out of my chest. I returned to the table. I could not believe my eyes. My stomach was spinning. I couldn't help but start vomiting, because there were dismembered human limbs on the table. In the middle of the table was a flayed head. I screamed and ran towards the door. I went out. For a moment I found myself in a dark cemetery. It was a place I had never seen before. There were black-clothed beings at the graves. They suddenly turned to me. They called me to their side by pointing with their fingers. I turned around to run away, but my mother and Isabella were right in front of me. One of them held my right arm, and the other, my left arm, and they were dragging me towards the cemetery. At that very moment, the church bells rang. I woke up with a start to the sound of the bells. I was in my bed. I was taking deep breaths. So what I saw was a nightmare. But it was so realistic that I ran to the living room immediately. Nina was preparing breakfast. I went to her and hugged her tightly. I couldn't hold back my tears. Nina asked in surprise, "My dear, what happened? Come on, get ready. We're going," I said. We hurriedly got ready before she could answer. On the way, Nina asked several times, "What happened? What's going on? Where are we going?" But I kept quiet. After a while, we arrived at the church I regularly went to. We entered through the door. When Father Thomas saw me, I ran to him and said, "Father Thomas, there is something I need to tell you. Please help me." When the priest saw my anxiety, he said, "Okay, son, let's go to my room. Let's not talk here." Father Thomas was truly a bright-faced, good-hearted person. I felt at peace when I was around him. I told him everything I had experienced and everything I had seen. My wife heard it there for the first time. She too burst into tears. She cried with me. Father Thomas said, "My son, there is obviously a spell or a curse on you. But don't worry, it will be resolved with God's permission. What about you, my daughter? Do you experience such things?" Nina said, "No, I only had a few weird nightmares, but I didn't pay much attention. My grandmother taught me prayers since I was little. I read them every night before going to bed. Maybe that's why it didn't affect me much." The priest smiled and said, "May God help you. Now, wait for me here. I'll be back in a minute," and left the room. He returned after about 10 minutes. "Son, get up. I will take you somewhere. With God's permission, you will be relieved of all your troubles there." My wife and I stood up. The priest walked ahead. We followed. He put us in his own car. After about half an hour of travel, we arrived at an old house in the countryside near Vienna. A man over 75 years old opened the door and said, "Come on, son, welcome. Come in and sit down." Father Thomas turned to him and said, "These children have a problem, sir. Solve it. With God's permission, they will always be grateful to you." The man said in a calm voice, "Don't worry, we will take care of it with God's permission," and sat down next to us. "Come on, children, what is your problem?" I explained my experiences in detail from the very beginning. After listening, the old man said, "Look, my son, such things do not happen for no reason or by chance. Someone obviously messed with you seriously. Tell me, have you had any bleeding or deep cuts on your body since you started experiencing these problems?" "No, it never happened, but my body was very weak and tired," I said. "Do you spend too much time on the toilet or spend too long in the bathroom?" "No, I don't remember much. Maybe it has happened, but I don't even realize what I'm doing these days," I said. The man nodded and said, "Okay, sit a little closer to me. Girl, do you experience such things?" "No, sir. I only had bad dreams a few times. That's all," she said. "Okay, girl, you stay close too. Let's make sure we do our job, no matter what," he said. He placed a bowl in front of us. He filled it with clean water. Then he read something and blew into it. He took something that looked like salt from a black jar and mixed it into the water. He held the bowl in his hands and turned it left and right a few times. The water was starting to ripple. "Now dip your fingers in this water 3 times, he said. We dipped our index finger into the water 3 times. Then he put the bowl back in place. He covered it with a black sheet. He asked us to place our hands on the cover. He placed his hand on top of ours and said, "Repeat what I say, letter by letter." That's what we did. We repeated what he said, even though it was long and difficult. Suddenly, he pressed down hard on our hands and pushed our hands into the bowl. The water suddenly became boiling. It burned our fingers. We immediately pulled our hands back. "Look at your hands," the man said. When we looked at the palms of our hands, a strange symbol appeared. The symbol on my wife's was indistinct, but on mine, it was so clear, as if carved with a knife. I couldn't believe my eyes. "Sir, what is this?" I said. The man said, "My son, a spell has been cast on you. The person who cast this spell is someone who lives in your house. A young woman. Only Isabella was in this house. I couldn't understand why she would do such a thing to me. So why did she cast such a spell on me?" "I didn't do her any harm," I said. The man said, "What she did to you wasn't evil. It was a love spell, a binding spell. In fact, she was trying to make you fall in love with her. But the spell has reversed. It has led to other things. It has become a curse." I immediately asked, "So, how do we get out of this situation, sir?" The man said, "Don't worry. The spell she cast is not very strong. It will be dissolved, with God's permission." Then he wrote several talismans. I had to add one of them to water and drink it in 3 sips before midnight on Friday. I had to mix one in water and pour it over my right and left shoulders while showering. I was going to carry the other one with me. The man told me, "If you do these things perfectly, everything will be solved and you will be saved." But there was only one problem. This spell first started as a love spell, then turned evil. The evil done would return to its owner. The man returned the magic spell without hesitation. He also wrote a protection prayer for my wife. He said that it would be enough to carry it with her. I asked about my mother and said, "Sir, could my mother have something to do with this? Maybe this is why she is sick." The man said, "Let's see, son." He opened a book. His eyes widened as he slowly turned the pages. The expression on his face was gradually changing. He closed the book and took a deep breath. Then he opened it again, closed it again. He did this 3 times. It was as if he was afraid of what he saw or didn't want it to be true. Double quotes. "Sir, are you okay? What happened?" I asked. "A very powerful spell was cast on your mother. That spell is the reason she is sick. But there is worse. Your mother became their captive. And for a long time," he said. My throat tightened. The words did not come out of my mouth. I wanted to talk, but I could end. Single quotes T. Father Thomas said, "I think we should go home. Let's see what's going on." That was true. We all got in the car and headed home. My heart was pounding all the way through. My wife was very scared. Her hands were cold as ice. She was shaking when we arrived. The door was wide open. When we entered, we saw that the items were in disarray. I ran to my mother's room. When I walked in, I couldn't believe my eyes. The room was in terrible condition. There was a heavy smell. The bed was ruined. Mud, dirt, and feces were mixed together. The view was terrible. Nina couldn't stand it and went out. I was in shock. My mother was not around. There was no Isabella either. It was impossible for the room to get to this state in such a short time, so we were under someone's spell. We were not aware of what was happening. The old man went inside and looked around and said, "This place is full of magic. It is beyond all of us to stay here any longer. Let's get out of here now. Call the police." We called the police. When they arrived, they examined every inch of the house. Everywhere they found animal mutilations, magic materials, and strange items that did not belong to us. All muddy and broken. Nina said she could never stay in that house again. We settled in with my father-in-law. At that time, we started looking for my mother, together with the police. After days of searching, a newly dug grave with no owner was found in a cemetery near Brussels. When they opened the grave, I experienced the biggest shock of my life. My mother was there, her body dismembered. The police were continuing their investigation, but the culprit was clear to me. I never saw Isabella after that day. We called her family, friends, everyone, but there was no news. It was said that she too was lost. Maybe the return of the spell had hit her too. Perhaps she paid for what she had done with her own life. A long time has passed since this incident. Nina and I moved completely from there. We live in Amsterdam now, in a place where no one knows us. My wife is pregnant. We will hold our child in our arms soon. I'm trying to forget everything that happened, but my mother's absence leaves a huge void inside me. I hope to be more careful with people in my life from now on. I won't make the same mistakes again. That's the story, friends. Thank you for listening. I love you so much. If you are not yet subscribed to my channel, you can subscribe and open notifications to be informed about new videos. See you in new videos. Goodbye.